Hello, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. Welcome to Shifting Perspectives. I am stepping out of everything I'm working on right now just to sit down and dissect money. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background in this, and then I'm going to really rip this apart. I can manifest anything. I have manifested everything. I have had extraordinary circumstances due to the stuff I manifest, including money. Except a few months ago, I put this thing in my brain where I said, I will not be allowed to manifest X until. And I'm sitting here now looking at the concept of manifesting money. And this is where I have a very big ethical problem with it. Not with everybody else doing it, with me doing it. This is personal. I don't want to manifest money. I want to understand money. I want to know how to earn it and get it all on my own. This is about me and my resourcefulness. And if I'm manifesting it, I'm not learning the lesson. That's like saying, I want fish. Poof, a genie gives you fish. Well, I haven't learned how to fish. I want to know how to fish. I don't want a genie bottle to just show up and give me the fish. That's not what I want. That's not what I value. That's not who I am. And I realized this yesterday. And I went on this massive, whoa, I don't actually want to manifest money. I don't want to. I want to understand how. I want to understand the theory of it. I want to understand what money is. I want to dissect it. And I'm a theoretical learner. So in order for me to even dig into this, I have to understand what money is and where did it come from. Now, I had a lot of people coming out to me saying, oh, money is energy. And I went, that does make sense. It moves like energy. But I'm like, no, something's off. Something's off. So we're gonna dig into this my way. I love sociology. It's one of my favorite topics. I love sociology more than psychology. Sociology is the psychology of community. It's the psychology of a village, of a city, of a town. It's the psychology of society. And when sociology couples beautifully with history. When you study history and the psychology of an individual, and then you study history with sociology, and you can see how the psychology of man shifts and moves over the ages. And then I went back to Mesopotamia. I went back to early man and agriculture. I went back to the Neanderthal, the evolution of man, the primordial ooze. I went right back to the very beginning, and I traced every step, every evolution, the evolution of animals, the psychology of animals, the mindset of animals. I studied the psychology of elephants, compared them to the psychology of dolphins. Dolphins have a psychology. Every animal has a psychology to it. I'm huge in Star Trek. Love Star Trek, Star Wars. I'm a nerd first and foremost. Before anything else, I am a nerd. I am a music nerd. I wasn't the band nerd, clarifying that. I was the Glee Club nerd. That's who I was. Just for I was the debate club nerd and the chess club nerd. That's what I was. So I'm sitting here analyzing this. And this is the other thing, is when I played Dungeons and Dragons, money, commerce, that was huge. So I pulled all of it. I pooled all of my resources and I dumped it all into this. And there is one very particular moment in time where we can point and go, right there is when money began. We have an exact location. We have an exact concept. This is funny. Did you know that bookkeeping existed before coin and money? Bookkeeping. Now that's a clue. That is what Anna calls a clue. Before money existed, before bookkeeping existed, it was way before population was large. It was when we had much smaller populations. So we had pockets of populations all over the place, very, very small. You see this a lot in the petty kingdoms of Norway. The petty kingdoms of Norway is a great example of early man because the hardships in Norway were so extreme. The lifestyle and culture in ancient Norway was so drastic, so perilous that things fell apart quickly, that you didn't survive beyond a certain point. The communities were small and they were isolated because of the terrain in Norway. So you had a community here in Nidaros, but that community in Nidaros could not make it over to Oslo or Elsund. And the reason why was because the terrain was just so treacherous. It was easier to get on a ship, sail around the fjords, and then go in that direction. It was absolutely amazing. Trondheim, that's what it's called today. Trondheim, not Nidaros. I learned the Old Norse for the words because that's where my book was that's the setting for my book. So I learned all of the original names of all the cities. So I flip between Old Norse and Norse. So Trondheim. So it's Trondheim, Oslo, as Elsund, and Bergen, or Bergen, I'm sorry, Bergen. And they would just go to all the different locations. So that's how it was for early man. Early man, when population was still very small. Only it wasn't the terrain, it was just we hadn't produced, we hadn't begat. We had not begat that much. And because there was not much begatting, the populations were small at that time. So what existed is what I like to liken to the Shire. Very much Lord of the Rings, the Shire concept. Now imagine there is no money in the Shire. That's where bartering existed. This is pre-agriculture, by the way. That's how early we're talking. This is before someone said, oh my God, if I plant the seed and grow it and I cultivate it, oh my God, I have food. Look at this. Isn't this amazing? So this was back when we were doing the foraging and the gathering. Hunter-gatherer. This is how old we're going back to. Hunter-gatherer before agriculture. And then we got our hands on agriculture. And when we got our hands on agriculture, we were able to sustain a massive amount of health that did not exist before there was starvation, before there was limited resources. We are still talking about scarcity. And this is beautiful. When you have a culture, it's completely at the mercy. It really, truly is completely at the mercy of its resources. It's completely at the mercy of its health, mental or physical health. And if you have a massive obstacle like a food shortage, you're not going to see the culture flourish. Agriculture changed this about us. When agriculture was introduced, our ability to maintain a level of health skyrocketed. We saw a massive boom in begatting, and people were having babies, and those babies were living longer because mothers were eating healthier when they were having children, when they were pregnant, so that the life expectancy increased. The survival rate at birth increased because there was no longer a food shortage. So this is all before money. This is all before commerce. This is just man living within a community and everyone working together. This is very much tribal to thinking, by the way. This is where everyone's learned self-comfort and everyone has learned resourcefulness. This is all community thinking, stage 2 perspective. I love the story Stone Soup. It's one of my favorite stories when I was a child. Oh my God, I love Stone Soup. I'm going to tell you the story of Stone Soup. This is very relevant to money. This man enters a village and everyone is bitter. Everyone is cross. Everyone is angry. This farmer has carrots and this farmer over here has beets. That farmer over here there has onions. This one over there has potatoes. And no one is sharing. Everyone is hoarding their resources. And this traveler, I like to think he's a bard. In my mind, he's a bard. This bard walks into this village and there's a food shortage. Everyone's got resources, but no one's pulling them together. And he asks, can I have some food? And everyone's like, no, you can't have food. And he goes, okay. And he can see that everyone's got carrots. This person's got potatoes. This person has onions, but no one is sharing. So he leaves the village. He finds this beautiful stone. He polishes it. He cleans it. He puts it in his bag and he goes back to the village. He goes, I am really hungry. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make soup for everybody. And he builds a fire. He takes the stone. He puts it in a cauldron, fills it with water. And they're all like, well, what's that? And he goes, oh, it's stone soup. Yeah, it's really nice. It's stone soup. And the water starts to boil around this stone. And people are starting to gather. This is huge on I love the philosophy, the psychology of we bond over food. So this is another huge thing for me with this story. So all the people gather around and they're all looking at the stone in the water and they're like, that's stone soup. And they're skeptical at first. They're like, this is something. He goes, oh yeah, it's absolutely the best soup you'll ever taste in the world. It's amazing. And they're like, so what's in it? He goes, well, there's potatoes and carrots and celery and lettuce. And he lists all these vegetables that go into it. And he goes, but it's okay. We don't have any of those ingredients. We just have the stone and that's okay. That's all right. It's going to be great. But then someone pops off with, well, I've got potatoes. Oh, well, if you give me your potatoes, if you share your potatoes, I can share my stone soup with you. And excited, the man runs off and grabs his potatoes and throws them in. And then he's like, yeah, this is really smelling fantastic. You know what? This would be really awesome is carrots. I wish we had carrots to go in this, but oh, well, it's going to be great just the way it is. Well, someone pops off with, well, I've got carrots. And he goes, really? Well, go ahead. If you want to give me your carrots and throw them in here, I'll give you some stone soup. And he runs off, goes and gets his carrots, comes back and he throws them in. And it waits a little longer, it boils down, and he's like, you know what would be really awesome in this is if we put celery in it and onions. And he starts listing off ingredients and people gets excited and he starts bartering with them. If you contribute with your resources, I will give you my resource. By the end of the story, everyone has contributed their food item, their resource into the soup. Now it's a full, beautiful cauldron of hot, boiling vegetable soup. And he ladles it out and he passes it around and they sit down and they break bread together and they eat this stone soup. And of course, the moral of the story is when you share and when you pool your resources together, you gain much more. Now, let's talk about money. This is the way it was. It was sharing. It wasn't bartering. It was a kind of sharing. It was, I have my chickens, I have my eggs, and that person over there has cows. Let's trade, let's share so we gain more abundance. That was the mindset. You did this with neighbors. One of my favorite images in a Disney movie is Princess Frog, when they're all eating the jambalaya in New Orleans out in the street, all cooking it together. Absolutely love that concept, that image. And this is it right here. It is the concept that you break bread with your neighbors. You break bread and you share. Now, in order for this to work, when it came to how many of my chickens equal your gallon of milk, now we're getting into value. Now, this is where things get sticky. Is it 1 cup of milk for 1 egg? Is it a dozen eggs for 1 gallon of milk? What's their worth? This is where bartering came into it. This is where the negotiation came into it. Absolutely bartering. And it went pretty well for a while. There was a lot of barter. There was trading. There was negotiation, a practice that is still a tradition that is still practiced in Europe today and all over the world. The United States is the only place that does not do this. And you sit down and you haggle over the value. Well, this is what it means to me. What does it mean to you? Again, this is all pre-money. This skill required communication. This skill absolutely was vital for communication. A sense of value. What is the value of someone else's resource worth to you? How much are you willing to give in order to get? Now, community was growing. Agriculture was invented. Things were getting bigger. We see law and code start to arise. Hammurabi's code is one of the oldest. It's around that time period where we start to see this. And it came into the concept of literally assigning a preordained value to everything, a number. Bookkeepers was one of the very first jobs in the world, a bookkeeper. And their job was to literally document the actual value, keep an inventory, and do an actual value of what somebody's possessions were worth. There is so much truth in words. The word capitalize means to take advantage of. Capitalism, taking advantage of. Another word for capitalize is exploit. So when bookkeeping came around, of course, somebody, probably a narcissist, decided to capitalize on this situation. Immediately, the concept of tariffs and taxes were born. Now you needed a bookkeeper to track the tariffs and the taxes. This is it right here. This is why a bookkeeper became a job, is because someone needed to track all the taxes. Money did not exist yet. This is just abstract thought that everyone decided to put down in a book. Tax collectors would come by, and there'd be numbers exchanged and moved around. They were literally capitalizing on this concept of, oh, look, communication has broken down. So instead of improving our communication, we're going to solve the problem for the people, not let them evolve, and we're going to create a monetary system instead. That'll solve this. Monetary systems were invented because people failed to communicate. Money is patchwork for failed communication. Somebody was incapable of coming to an agreement. Conflict was breaking out. Communication was breaking down. And instead of letting the people suffer and figure it out and grow, they enabled the problem by introducing money, by setting a designated, this is the price. Later, they decided to create a physical concept of money to embed into the culture and into the system so that people could come along and use that money as a token, as a representation of the numbers that are in the books. Let's not forget that everything began with just the abstract concept of numbers in a book. Money came after because people wanted the corporeal concept. They did not have the corporeal concept, and then the bookkeeping began. They had the bookkeeping and the numbers first. It was abstract thought. And then people wanted a physical token to represent the abstract thought so they could track it better. Hence, coinage. Everyone forgot that this is about stone soup. Everyone forgot that this is about sharing your resources. So what is money? Money is not an energy. Money was birthed out of the exploitation of taking advantage of poor communication. Money is narcissism. It's not. Money is absolutely, it is absolutely exploiting a situation to gain more than your resources are worth. It's so that you can deliberately get more out of a situation than you earn, than you deserve. In a way, it's raping the energy balance of the resources and to share. Now, it's been refined. It's now embedded into our culture. This thing is thousands of years old. It goes back to 7,000 BC in Lydia. That's how old this is. That's the spot in history where we can point at it and say, right there, that's when money was made. But originally, it was created to solve a dispute because people could not agree on the value of their resources, because resources were scarce and they had to pool them together. So what does this mean for the healing garden? And this is where I keep running into this concept of how do you put a value on education. And in my opinion, it's priceless. You cannot sell education. You should not sell education. That is something I'm huge on. So I'm looking at this going, time? Can you share time? Well, time is an abstract bully word created for people who don't want to learn a lesson because they're impatient. Time is 100% a bastard child from impatience. It is literally a bully concept designed to rush people along because somebody doesn't want to sit down and learn the lesson. Time does not exist. It's another abstract concept. Money and time don't exist. They're not real. But our entire system revolves around fictions to the point where we think we need these two things. And you really don't. You really don't. If you thrive off of a stone soup culture, you don't. The very first company I built and ran was 5 years, and I didn't monetize it until the third year. The first 2 years of Brain to Books was all bartering trade stone soup. We all came together. We were all authors, but I had an author who worked at CERN as a physicist. I had an author who was a marketing manager. She had a master's degree in marketing. I had another author who was bookkeeping and data entry, and that's all he did. And the only resource that was required, there was no money exchange in the first 2 years. It was just pull together your resources, bring your resources. They had to pull their resourcefulness and contribute it and put it into the company in order to make something of it. And whatever they built was what they came up with. So they created the idea, and then they had to they had to be a volunteer to promote their own idea, to put their idea into the company. So we literally stone souped Brain to Books. Absolutely. We stone souped Brain to Books. And the whole thing was built for the first 2 years off of this sharing concept. And it was not this concept of, well, what do you have to bring to it? It's very much the mindset. This is where you get into manifestation of scarcity, hoarding, and abundance, giving, sharing. It's really that. It's versus. It's scarcity versus abundance. It's hoarding versus sharing. And that's really the difference. With stone soup, it's all about sharing. And then later it evolved into, let's pool together our resources and let's do this trade. And then it turned into hoarding later. And now it's, well, I want more resources coming into me than I'm putting out. And it's literally a raping of the concept of sharing. It's horrific. It isn't an energy, or is it? And this is where I want to go back to it. I want to say that it is very much an energy, because sharing is an energy. But money removed that kind of an energy and switched it over to hoarding. And I believe when I manifest money, that's the emotion I'm picking up on. That's why I'm struggling. It's because every time I follow anybody's directions, and I'm going to be honest with you, I have a lot of people who are master manifestors, and I can manifest anything except money. And I'll follow their advice, and I can't do it because it is violating my ethic. I feel the hoarding negative energy. And I'm going, this isn't about me being valuable enough to accept the money. This is about participating in a system that was literally birthed out of taking advantage of people and exploiting them. For God fucking sake, we call it capitalism, from capitalize, because we are taking advantage of a situation. That rubs my ethics every way, the wrong way that it possibly can. I have lived an entire year without money in New York City, an entire year. I know how it's done. I can see it on, and there's zero government assistance happening here. I divorced the system, and when I divorced the system, I divorced all of the benefits that were available to me if I wanted. And I'm looking at it going, can I accept and participate in money? Am I at a point where I cannot literally engage and put myself into the situation with money? And every time I do and try, I have this ethical resistance to it. So now I have to figure out how to break down the acceptance of this ethical concept, turning something positive into good, or turning something negative that started off negative and then turning it into something good. This is going to be an ongoing thing that I explore until I can really figure out what money is and rip it apart. If you love shit like this, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Let me know what part of the video resonated with you. And we are growing the garden. Please donate. Take a look at the link below. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.